everyone, my name's Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you for joining me today on this Flosstube Friday for Flosstube number 66, I believe. I really should check. I say this every single time I film a Flosstube. I don't check. I think it's 66. You will know if I'm wrong. I have a fully finished object. I have a finished object. I have works in progress. I have a new start. I have lots of plans, and I want to talk about my 2022 plans and also my 2022 planning process, because I'm starting a new planning process inspired by many of you and also the stitching journal that I got in the resolution stitching box from Black Needle Society. So I'm going to talk about that as well. But before we get to any of that, I want to welcome my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me on my crafty and artistic adventures. And welcome back to everyone who's been hanging out with me for however long you've been with me. It's been great to get to know you in the comments here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me in two places. My main account is Dr_Christy, and I'll put both of them right here. And that's where I post my stitching, my weaving, my baking, my dog, my life, that kind of a thing. Mostly stitching and weaving at this point. And then I also have a second account at the Spoolery. And that account, oh, it's probably over here actually. And that account is focused on my vintage wooden spool obsession and also small business. So that one's kind of slow right now because I am not making much with spools at the moment, but it will come back very soon. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts, most recently weaving, and baking, most recently no baking, and history, and the history of all of those things. So if any of that is interesting to you and you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. So elephant in the room, my fully finished object is my temperature library. Now, full disclosure, don't love the finish. It is just a flat finish. The back, I thought that writing would be appropriate for this. It has an uneven red piping around it, and it's hanging from an antique / vintage thread, industrial thread bobbin / spool. So this is my temperature pattern for 2021. I did it all in satin stitch, as you can see. Well, all the books in satin stitch. The other things I did in various stitches. So the bookcase itself is in stem stitch. I did a little basket weave on this bowl. This here is a combination of satin stitch and stem stitch. The clock is stem stitch, and the inside is a laid and couch stitch, which is called the Bayou stitch. Here we have some lazy daisies in my daisies. The earth is actually several blends. I wanted to make it kind of interesting, and those are stem stitches. I do like me a stem stitch, not gonna lie. And then the ship itself, here, let me block my face. The ship is done in a couch. So what I did was I took a full 6-strand floss and just couched it down. I wish I could show you the back. I should have taken a picture of the back. But basically there's nothing on the back except for these little thin couching stitches, and this is like a stem stitch. And that's it. So that is my fully finished object. And it's gonna live on this for a little while. It's gonna hang out right here until I'm tired of it. And like I said, eventually I might take it apart and make it into something else that I like a bit more. But for now, it works pretty well, I think. And this is a pattern that I designed. And I think we're gonna have a little story time, because we're gonna have a little story time because I have a lot of new subscribers in the past few months who maybe don't know my history with stitching and cross stitching in particular, and designing patterns even more particularly. So I kind of want to just give a brief history of that. If you're not interested in that and you want to see my finished object, I will put a timestamp right here for when I'm done with this conversation, and you can just jump ahead if you're so inclined. But basically, I started stitching about 2.5 years ago. I had done some embroidery in college, freehand embroidery in college, but it never really stuck. And then I got really into video games that were kind of sucking up all of my time. And I'm like, I need a craft. Like, if I'm gonna sit and do something for 8 hours 5 hours. I want to end up with like a thing. I want to like produce something. And as a history professor, I don't produce like objects, right, that you can like touch in my general day-to-day life. I write articles sometimes that you can like print out and touch, or that come in books. In fact, I have a article in a book coming out that I should be getting soon, so I'm excited about that. I'll show you that when I get it. And so I kind of felt like I wanted to make something. And my hobby used to be nail polish. I would paint really intricate images on my nails. But that takes so long to do because you have to wait for it to dry. And also my hands aren't pretty. I don't have pretty hands. I kind of destroy my hands when I'm stressed out. I pick at them and that kind of a thing. And so my hands aren't pretty enough. So no one could ever see them, and I was never happy looking at them. So I thought I needed a new craft. And I went and visited my mom 2 summers ago. So it would be the summer of 2019. 3 summers ago. The summer of 2019. And she had started cross-stitching. Now my mom is a knitter, and she does some spinning. Yeah, and she does a little bit of crochet. She had picked up cross-stitch just as like a side hobby. She's retired, so she can have all sorts of hobbies. And I am not good at counting, which I'll talk about later, and you'll see how I cope with this when I do cross stitch. But so I thought, well, why don't I look into freehand embroidery? And it's funny because I bought a whole bunch of embroidery stuff, and I bought a whole bunch of origami stuff. And I thought, I'm going to do one of these 2 art forms, and embroidery ended up working out, winning out. So I have a ton of paper too for origami. Maybe I should try stitching on it because it's nice and thin. That's another idea. I started embroidering and I got obsessed with embroidering. I have no chill. I have mentioned this before. I have no chill. So I got obsessed with it. Within 2 months of starting embroidery, I had embroidered dozens of things. I ended up being part of like an art walk for my embroidery and selling my artwork. And then within not too long, I was selling my artwork in my friend owned a pie and coffee shop, and so I was selling my artwork in the pie and coffee shop. And this of course ended with the pandemic, and her shop closed down not too long ago, maybe a year ago. I started my Flosstube channel in the summer of 2020 just because I desperately needed a community. I'm an extrovert, and I was in super isolation. I have been teaching from home, teaching online for almost 2 years now. And I really needed a way to create a community for myself so that I didn't basically go into a deep depression because I was heading that direction. So I started doing Flosstube, but I started doing Flosstube with embroidery because I didn't do cross stitch. But then of course I saw all these people doing temperature patterns, and I said, oh, I want to do a temperature pattern. Let me go find an embroidery temperature pattern. Well, my friends, in case you're wondering, there are no temperature embroidery patterns. They do now exist, but they didn't exist at the time. Nobody was making them. And I said, okay, well then I'm just going to have to make my own. And that's just the way it is. And I didn't want to steal other people's temperature pattern ideas. I wanted to come up with an idea that made sense to me and my interests. And also my mom wanted to get involved in this as well. She kind of stopped doing cross stitch, but wanted to try embroidery. And so I said, well, why don't I'm going to try and plan a temperature pattern. So in December of 2020, I came up with an idea for a bookshelf. I do all my best thinking when I'm walking my dog. And I thought, what can you have 365 of that are different colors? And I thought, well, books, obviously. So I decided to design this pattern, and I of course wanted knickknacks because my bookshelves are not neat at all. My bookshelves are all higgledy-piggledy. And I showed this on my channel here to my subscribers. And one of my subscribers, Tanya, said to me, if you chart that, I would stitch it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, let me think about this. And then I said, would anyone else be interested in stitching this? And so I had a handful of people say that they would be interested in stitching a temperature bookcase. So I thought, okay, well, then I'll buy the program that, it was like a $45 program. And so I thought I'd buy the program and chart it out. And if people want to buy, like if I sell 5, I sell my patterns for $9. And I'm like, if I sell 5 of them, I'll make that money back. And it has turned into like a whole thing. So that's where my designing came in. Then I found some 16th century lace pattern books that had these amazing motifs in them. And these lace patterns were pixel patterns. And I thought, I would love to stitch some of these. I would love to try stitching some of these. I had never until this point done cross stitch. So I decided to design a couple of cross stitch patterns based on these lace patterns. And so the first one I did is this one, which is the dragon and harpy. And this was my first ever cross stitch that I did. And then I designed this red deer. I designed these mer people, these purple merples. And then I designed this sampler. And I designed the sampler because I found this really cool alphabet that had 3 A's. So it's called the Sea Monster Sampler. So that's kind of where my designing started. And my plan, of course, was to keep designing these bookcases for me and my mom, so that way I'd have a library. That's why it's called Temperature Library, because I plan on stitching bookcases until I have a library. And so that's kind of how this all started. So then I started cross stitching as well, which I have to show you here. In fact, I only have well, that's not true. My only stitching whips today are cross stitch whips. And that's kind of how it started. And so I had kind of gotten really heavy into cross stitch. And I think that that's because of Flosstube. I watch a lot of Flosstube. It's kind of all that I watch these days. I get really anxious when I'm stressed out, and Flosstube is not stressful. So I've been watching a lot of Flosstube, and that, of course, as you all know, enables you and gets you thinking about the interesting patterns. So I think I'm kind of switching back into more embroidery and less cross stitch now. The pendulum's kind of swung back. I have been feeling uninspired. I've been feeling uncreative lately. And so what I did today and yesterday is that I started following a ton of new embroidery and weaving artists. And so far, I'm feeling like my brain is going wild with ideas. So I think it was a really good idea for me to do that. That's kind of how I got here. That's how I started designing. It was really accidental. I had not planned on starting a cross stitch or embroidery pattern business. I basically designed this for myself, and other people seem to want to stitch it. So I really only design things that I want to stitch, or that people ask for, that I think would be fun to stitch. I don't plan on quitting my day job. Let's just say that. And I plan on being a very low scale, low profile designer. But I thought I would just give you a little bit of my history in textile arts and embroidery. And I have actually shown at a local gallery. My university has an art gallery, and I showed these 4 pieces at my local art gallery, which was really fun. And I hope to, at some point, when I get some more embroidery pieces made, show them at the local art gallery in town here. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And if you're interested in any of the things that I've shown, you can find my Etsy shop down below. That's where I sell all my patterns in PDF form. If you are interested in getting the 2022 Temperature Library, which looks like this, in paper copy, you can get it exclusively from Stitch New England, which is Pam from Stitching the Land of Good Enough's new needlework shop in Massachusetts. I'll put a link down below to that. And that's where you can find this pattern in a paper copy. I'll talk more about the embroidery version of this in plans, because I'm kind of excited about that, and we'll talk about that. So anyway, that's me and my textile arts, and I hope that it was interesting to you. If not, I gave you a timestamp, so it's your own fault. So let's get on to my finished object, which is not a stitched piece. It is a woven piece. I bought this loom from Michael's last week. I showed it, and I decided to do a woven tapestry, a small woven tapestry. And I'm going to be honest with you, I friggin' love it. I love it so much. I used 4 different fibers in this. I don't know how to hold this so you can see it and I can show you the fibers. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it like this. I have been trying to hang it and knocking scissors off my wall and all sorts of things. So I'm just going to leave it like this and hold it for you. It uses 3 different fibers. It uses this, which I don't know what it is. I got it off of eBay and it just had such a lovely texture and it makes such a nice neutral yet interesting color. I'm using this, the white, which was a gift from my friend Valerie, who I think spun it. So maybe she can, it had no label on it, so maybe she can tell me what it was, but it is so shiny and silky. It's amazing. And I used this, which is a silk. I'll show you the thing. I actually have the tag for this one. It is a silk yarn. It's an antique, or it's antique basically, from Belding Corticelli, and it's called Shanghai Shag. And it's called Shanghai because it's silk, which they got from Asia when they were making silk. And it's thin, but it has this amazing like texture. And then I also have just a little bit of wool roving in natural that I think just adds a little bit of texture. I used several different stitches. This here is just a basic weave. I used some Raya knots, which create fringes. I used, I forget what this is called, and I forget what this bubbly thing is called. I'll put the name of this stitch right here, and I'll put the name of this stitch right here. This is my first woven piece on this loom. I'm really pleased with it. I do think there'll be more weavings in the future. I'm going to finish this off tomorrow and get it off the bars tomorrow. And I have so many ideas. In fact, I'll show you some of them. Well, I won't give them away. I'm not going to give them away, but I'll show you where I'm keeping my ideas. This is my first loom weaving. And I plan on hanging it on another one of these. I have a couple more of these that I want to use for this. And in fact, I think I need to buy more because if these are coming out, I need more industrial spools to hang them on. So that is my finished object. And let's talk about whips. I have 3 whips, one of which is a new start. We're going to start with that one. And I mentioned this last week that I was going to do Modern Folk Embroidery, The River, as a wedding sampler. And I'm going to put mine and my husband's name right here. So I'm going to put an extra row in here and put our name and the date of our wedding. So that's what this is. And I'm doing it on a piece of, I think, 16 count Aida that I dyed using, basically I developed using a photography technique. And so this pattern is from a piece of lace that my cousins gave me for our wedding. They basically gave us these amazing textiles, placemats, tablecloths that are embroidered by my cousin's husband's mother. But they're beautiful, and this was the lace. And I have a start here of the border that I counted probably 5 or 6 times just to make sure I got it right, because I did not want to grid this. And I used actually the counter that I got. It was like a clicker counter that I got with my Black Needle Society Resolution stitching box. So this is being stitched in DeVere Yarns silk, 72 weight silk in old gold, which is the exact same color that I used in my wedding bouquet when I embroidered the main central flower in my wedding bouquet. I'll put a picture of that right here. And this is the same color as that. And it's a 12 strand silk floss. And I'm doing it 3/1. 3/1. So that is how far I've gotten on that. And this was my New Year, New Start, which feels like forever ago, and yet was since my last video last week. This is my New Year, New Start, and my hope is to have it completed by our anniversary on September 5th. I have also started my temperature drink shelf, which is going to look like this. And this is the second temperature design for 2022. The first one is the the first one is the 2022 temperature library, which I've already talked about. And here is my start. I've decided to do it on a navy blue, I think this is 14 count Aida. And I have the first two shelves done, and then this is the, what's it called? The sign that says Grab Yo Drank. This, the Grab Yo Drank is inspired by Chevis of Chevy Rel. I want to say it's Chevy Rel Stuff, but that's her website. I think her podcast is just Chevy Rel. I'll link it down below. And this was inspired by Chevis and my mom, who both like a nice cocktail. And there are no drinks yet because I stitch my temperature patterns with my mom on Sundays. And we did not meet last week because we were both having a difficult weekend. So this is coming along, and I plan on, so if you look at the picture here, I charted the drinks with a gray glass, which I think is charted in 02 or 01. And then the liquid is the high temperature. I've decided that I want to do the glass in the low temperature and the drink in the high temperature. That's my plan. And I'm doing this because I actually have an idea for a temperature pattern for 2023 that will come out in September or October that can be high and low temperatures as well. And so I kind of want to try it out and see how it looks. I don't know, see how I like it. That's the plan. But that is for another conversation. Oh, and there is a hashtag for temperature patterns, and it's the hashtag that Pam of Stitching Land of Good Enough came up with last year at Stitch the Temp Sal. I'll put that right here. And that is that I follow that. It's not just my temperature patterns, it's kind of all temperature, like any temperature pattern that you're doing. But I love seeing your progress on my temperature patterns, and I always repost them in my stories. So if you tag me in it, or if you use the hashtag, I'm going to repost it in my stories. If you have a problem with that, let me know. I don't know. But I love seeing them, and I love seeing them grow, and I love seeing them in different places. And I'm super excited because we have people from all over the world now who are doing these. And so I'm getting to see my first Southern Hemisphere ones, which is super exciting. Speaking of which, I now have Australians and New Zealanders who are doing my temperature library. And I had a request for a temperature library or knickknacks, because I have a knickknack. I have knickknacks on them, obviously, as you saw. And I have a knickknack pattern that's just knickknacks. And I had a request for Australian and New Zealand focused knickknacks. And so what I was thinking is that I would just like make a small extra pattern for like $1 that was like 10 or 12, maybe 15 Australian or New Zealand focused knickknacks. Is that something that anyone would be interested in? Number one, let me know down below. And number two, I am not from Australia or New Zealand, nor have I ever been to either place. So is there a thing that you as an Australian or New Zealander would like to see charted as a knickknack for a bookshelf? Now keep in mind it has to be small. These shelves are 15 squares high. So they're 15 squares high. So think of small things that I could chart that you would be interested in stitching. And essentially it would just be like a little extra pattern on my shop for $1. Is anyone interested in that? And if so, what ideas do you have for that? That is, please tell me down below, or like, I don't know, on Instagram or wherever. I really would like to know. So my final whip is my big girl. It is my HAED. This is my birthday start, and it is a stitch along with me and Jessica, the Rainy Day Stitcher. We're both medievalists. So I'm a medieval historian. She is a medieval art historian. And we both decided that we wanted to stitch the Lady and the Unicorn tapestries. These are Heaven and Earth designs. They're HAEDs. And I am doing Desire, which is the one with the tent. I love the tent. She's doing Sight, which is the one with the mirror. And this is how far I have gotten. This is a little past halfway. I wanted to make sure that I had enough fabric, you know, horizontally. I just dropped it. I shook you. I wanted to make sure I had enough fabric, and so I went all the way to the middle and folded it, and I have about 3 inches to spare with a 3-inch border. So I feel pretty good about that. This is just on an Ivory Aida that I got at 123 Stitch. I had to get a yard. This was actually thanks to Carrie from Carrie and Stitch's 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So thank you, Carrie, for buying me my fabric for my HAED. And I'm not color completing, but I am definitely, I'm doing it cross country, and I am doing low colors at a time. So I've only bought 3 colors. This is 814. And if you notice, I chart every 5 squares because I really struggle with counting. And this is kind of what I alluded to in my kind of history of my stitching. I really struggle with counting. I lose track of counting very quickly. I miscount all the time. I like seriously miscount all the time. And that kind of thing really sucks the joy out of stitching for me. So what I have discovered is that if I grid it 5 by 5, I make way fewer mistakes and I enjoy it much more. And if I make a mistake, I catch it much sooner. So I grid it 5 by 5. And this is just gridded using a black friction pen, so a heat erasable pen. And for the most part, I will not actually use black. But for the background, which is pretty dark, I figured it would be okay. And it was the one that I had when I was gridding. And I'm like, I'm gridding this now or it's never going to happen. So this is my start. I'm a little over 0.5% done. And if I can do 875 stitches a week, I'll be done in 5 years, I think. So that's the goal, 800, which is about 45,000 stitches a year. Now that sounds like a ton, but I don't have a ton of whips. I only have 11 whips, including like all of them, like weaving, my quilting whip, like all that. I only have 11. So I can really focus on this. And so far I've been doing really well. I dropped my threads. This is my threads at the moment. I have 3 colors. Like I said, 814 is what I've been working on. I have 400, and then I have 3371. And I stitch in hand from right to left. And so I'm going with the ones that have a lot of stitches in the top right-hand corner. And I think I'm going to start working my way down and maybe eventually getting to an object of some kind. So those are the things that I've been working on this week. I have a little bit of haul, and then I will talk about plans. My haul is, I have Happy Mail. I have some Happy Mail, and I have a little bit of haul. So I bought some spools. So I collect these wooden spools, and I make jewelry and other home decor items out of them. And I haven't been buying very many because I have a lot, but this lot came up and it had this spool on it. So I really love the Corticelli brand. I love how their spools look. I like how their thread looks, and they're massive. They're a company that it's out of business now, and they merged with the Belding brand in like the 30s. So this is just Corticelli, which means that this is probably about 100 years old, this spool. And their mascot was a cat playing with thread, because their idea was that the thread was so strong and it wouldn't knot, right? It wouldn't knot, and so a cat could play with it and it still wouldn't knot. So the cat is their symbol. And I've never seen one with a cat on the spool. I also got it for this two-tone spool, which is gorgeous. So this is the Brainerd and Armstrong Co. So this is one of the things I got. It has some other spools in it. I will make things out of them. I plan on participating in a local arts festival in May, if all goes to plan, where I can, because I do have a business with these and making things with them, and so that's what that's part of. But I was really excited about that. So that's my haul. I also got I set up my cutter. So I have a silhouette cutter that my husband got me for my birthday for Christmas. He got it for me for Christmas. It's like a Cricut, only a different brand that has more flexibility. So I decided to make a floss card for my temperature library. And so I printed all of the numbers, the DMC numbers, and the patterns, the range on this. And this was just on my advent calendar from this past year box. It was shortbread. It was a Walker shortbread advent calendar. And so I used that. But the reason why I wanted this cutter was actually for the drawing function to sketch out my embroidery patterns. But the 12 by 12 mat isn't quite large enough for, in particular, my embroidered temperature library that I'm doing this year, which is using basically I'm doing a different stitch every day. It's called the 365 Stitch Project. That's my hashtag right here. And I am starting it tomorrow. So what I bought was a 12-inch by 24-inch mat so that it could trace or it could sketch my pattern onto that, and then I can then stitch from that. So that is happening tomorrow, and it's the 365 Stitch Project. I have a database, which is linked down below, of the first 183 stitches I'm going to use. I just added one today, actually. I plan on filming my stitching of the books. It's not going to be a tutorial. It's going to be a demonstration. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to teach you how to do it, but I am going to show you what I'm doing, which is a fine line, but it is what it is. So that is, I bought that. I bought those mats, those cutting mats, the 12 by 24 cutting mats. I did get some Happy Mail, and this is from the past few weeks because I forgot to bring it out here on my last video. First, I want to talk about the floss drops that I got because I am a late comer to the floss drop swap that has been going on for several months. And so if anyone wants to swap with me, let me know. I have incredibly creepy baby floss drops that I am sending out, and I have a ton of them. So if you want some creepy baby floss drops that will remind you of me, then let me know and I will get those out to you. But I did get some in the mail. I got some from Anna, who on Instagram is Anna Tanzania, and she sent me these two floss drops. Are they beautiful? And then I got some that I have to punch from the Southern Yankee Stitcher, and she sent me one of her beautiful stitched pieces. There we go, which is lovely. So I'll punch these. And finally, I got some from Beck Elaine's stuff. Beck Elaine, she's a prolific Flosstube watcher and commenter and a lovely human. And so she made some floss drops for me. And these are text with stickers on them, and then also some blank ones. But she gave me some stickers to go on them of woodland creatures and succulents and that kind of thing. So thank you all so much for the floss drops. I'm super excited to use them. I think these are going to be for my HAED once I get more flosses. I'm going to use all these floss drops from the floss drop swap to fill out those floss drops, because I have some that Janet Jabber gave me when I want to give away, and I've been using them for other things, but I think I'll use them for this. I have some that Kaylee Cross Stitch gave me, which I think I've shown, but they're right here, so I'll show them again. They are of her cat, Susie. I have some that Jody of Trixie Tricycle gave me. So basically, I'm building a stash of floss drops from friends to use on my HAED, which will be nice because then I can just use them for a very long time. And the nice thing about this HAED is that I do, if I enjoy stitching it, if I ever finish it, I want to start on another one. There's a series of 6 of these. So I showed you 2 of them earlier because I'm doing one and Jessica's doing them, but there are other ones as well. So I could be stitching from this group of HAEDs for the rest of my life. And they're all similar color schemes, although they use different amounts of each floss. They are similar color scheme. I also got a gift, a little happy mail from my friend Vanessa, who many of you also know and love. And she gave me a skein of teal variegated floss. It is DMC 4025 because she knows how much I love teal. So thank you, Vanessa, for this as well. So that is my happy mail for the day, for this week. And I think all I have left to talk about is my planner and my plans. So if you are not interested in hearing kind of a review of the planner, how I'm using the planner and my plans, then thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in my next video. Those of you who are staying, I want to be honest about this because I do like it and I do plan on using it, but I had to do a lot of modifications. So first of all, I ripped out a bunch of pages because this planner definitely presupposes that you have a ton of whips that you're working on in like a rotation. It's very like Flosstuber focused, it feels to me, as opposed to people who stitch fewer projects. So I have 11 whips, but I think 4 of them are cross stitch. So I literally can't do a lot of these challenges because I don't have enough projects. So I was going to toss these, which is why they're crumpled up, but I thought I would talk about them. So for example, just so you can see what I'm talking about. For example, there's an A to Z stitching challenge, which sounds great, except the directions are put at least 500 stitches or finish a project that begins with each letter of the alphabet in 2022. A or the do not count as the beginnings of the title of the piece. So that means you have to have at least 26 whips throughout the year, each that start with a different letter. That's never going to happen for me. So I didn't need those pages. There's also, I'm not goal oriented in this way. The Pamper Yourselves, it was, put a project down, use this list to name a project you would like to make progress on, and then what your goal for the piece is, and pamper your, and buy yourself something. If I really want something, I will save up and just buy it. I don't reward myself with things. And then there's the May new starts. Well, I don't participate in New Year in Stitch Mania or May Stitch, start alongs and that kind of a thing. I don't do that. So that wasn't really useful for me. So I ripped all of these out. There are some that I kept in that I have reworked. So that's what I ripped out right away. I'm like, I don't need these. I want to get them out of there. I took this entire thing apart. Like literally took every page out and put it back in, because this piece right here, which is where where they meet, was inside the back cover, which meant that I could never open it up all the way. Like you could not open this journal up all the way to write in the end pages. And it was going to frustrate me to no end. And so I took it apart and put it back together. And now I can open it. Like you can do this now, which you couldn't do. Oh, another page fell out. But you can open it like this all the way and write on the final pages, which you couldn't do before. I forgot, there's another one too. So this one was stitching all the colors. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can stitch different colors. No, it's stitch on pieces with these different colored fabrics. Well, I don't have a ton of fabric, so I can't ever accomplish this. And then finally, bingo, right? Project has a person, designer name has needle, project has words or phrases, designed by someone under age of 12. I can't ever do that. So anyway, those are the ones that I ripped out. So let's talk about this. So like I said, I had to take it all apart, and it works now, and that wasn't difficult, but it was kind of a pain. These tabs are just paper. So I have been working on this for one day, and they're already looking raggedy. There's no way they're gonna last the year, which is really disappointing. Those definitely should be thicker card. I made a place for video ideas, and I think I took a picture of this page. I'll put it right here. I actually don't remember what's on it anymore. But I essentially put a little sticker at the top, and then I whited out all of the prompts. And so now I just have video ideas, which works for me. And luckily I'm a planner, so I have a lot of planning stickers. And I bought a sticker book that was on clearance, where the stickers are too large for, I have a happy planner. They're too large for my happy planner. They're for the large happy planner, and I have a medium happy planner. So I am using that for this and just covering up things. So that's my video ideas. I have my goals. I put those in here. I'm not really doing stitching stats so much. I do have the number of whips. My number of whips is 11. But my stitching goals are basically just finishing current whips. And then there are a couple of 45,000 stitches in my HAED, and then make a couple of things. And then I have personal goals, like I'd love to get 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. I got 1,100 in a year and a half. Maybe I can get to 2,000 by the next year. Who knows? I really enjoyed filming that ASMR video that I posted before. And so I want to film an ASMR video a month. I think that'd be nice. I want to film all my hashtag 365 stitch project videos. I want to post a history video a month. I want to start baking again, which would be nice. I stopped baking. I live in Mississippi, and my air conditioning went out in July, and we didn't get air conditioning back until September. Needless to say, I didn't stitch. I mean, I didn't bake for those 10 weeks. And I have not gotten back into baking. So I've been keeping my sourdough starter alive. He's perfectly fine and happy in my fridge, but I haven't been baking. So that's a thing I want to do. In the monthly view, I'm recording the high and low temperature for the day. I'm putting my videoing schedule, my filming schedule, my goals, that kind of a thing. This is just stuff I've done today, so it's not fully fleshed out. I have daily stitch trackers, which are really nice. So I have colored pens that I keep by my stitchy chair. And so I have my current whips that I'm focusing on, and then my stitch counts. Oh, I also got a new light with a magnifier. I took a picture. This is what it looks like. I was using a light and then like magnifiers on my eyes, but those magnifiers on my eyes were giving me a headache. And I also couldn't see the pattern. So now I have one of the lights with the magnifier in it, and so far it's working really well. I've attached it to the bookshelf right next to my stitchy chair. I do like that there is a goal at the top of every week, and this is the week layout, which is nice. And then after, at the end, there is a finished project, lots of pages for finished projects. So I put in my temperature library here. I put in my tapestry that I did. It had a lot of pages for finished projects. Six pages for finished objects. So I commandeered the last two as a spool idea page and a weaving idea page. I, whited out and put stickers in. And then there's no place to write notes. So I created a place to write notes. So I have this is my cross stitch pattern idea page right here, which is the beginning of the grid. And I know a lot of people love the grid. I was watching Michelle G. Bendy Stitchy, and her planner didn't have a grid, so she put one in. I don't use it. I'm not going to use the grid, so I'm using it as notes instead. And I'm using the stickers. And then the last page are my embroidery ideas. My freehand embroidery ideas. So I know I feel like I was very negative about this. I'm not feeling negative about this. I'm feeling actually really excited about it now that I have personalized it how I want it to be. But I wanted to be honest about my feelings as I was personalizing it. It definitely was not made for people like me. It was not made for more casual cross stitchers at all. It was made for like really intense, serious cross stitchers. And that's just not me, you know? And I think that that's not a lot of people. I think a lot of people are monogamous stitchers or have 3 projects at a time. Overall, I'm excited to use this. I'm hoping it will help me stay on track. It'll help me with staying on target with the videos I want to make. And speaking of videos, I think I've been kind of playing around with what I want to do with videos, because at first I was making 2 videos a week. I was doing a Tuesday and Friday video every week, but I was working from home, and so my time was more flexible. As of now, I'm going back into the classroom and back on campus 4 days a week. So my time is not as flexible, especially on Tuesdays. To prepare for this, I started doing a Flosstube every other week and then doing an alternate video in the interim week. But that alternate video is actually a ton of work, and Flosstubes are not a ton of work. I mean, it takes time to like edit the video, but not nearly as much time as like researching a history video or doing a tutorial. Like those take so much time. Kudos to people who do tutorials all the time, because they take a ton of time. Whereas Flosstube, I just have to talk to you about my stitching for the week and my plans and stuff. And that's pretty easy. So I think going forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Flosstube every Friday, because I really enjoy Flosstubes every Friday. And when I was doing them every 2 weeks, they were really, really long. This is a long one, but this is also a plans video, and I gave you a little bit of history about my stitching. Normally, they're like a half hour, my weekly Flosstubes, and I kind of like that. It doesn't suck up as much time, you know? And then I'm going to post some videos on Tuesdays or other days of the week when I have a video to post. I'm not going to stick to a specific schedule. But again, I did enjoy the ASMR video, filming that and just giving myself permission to just stitch in quiet for 20 minutes to a half hour to an hour, or however long, you know, it is. And in fact, I just filmed a weaving ASMR video the other day because it was like pouring rain and it sounded like glorious, like, you know, like the really thick raindrops falling and how glorious they sound. And I'm like, I want to film an ASMR of weaving with just the sound of the rain and weaving. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. But I'm also planning, like I said, on filming the stitches that I do for the 365 Stitch Project. So that's also another video. So I feel like I will have content for during the week, but I'm not going to stress myself out about it because I do have a job that is about to get busy. So I want to make sure that I can do all the things I want to do. So that's what's happening with my videos. And I hope that you will hang out with me. They're going to kind of shift more embroidery. I'm probably not going to start any new cross stitch projects for quite a while. I have a couple design ideas that I want to do, and so I may stitch those, but otherwise I'm going to be focusing on embroidery and expanding my embroidery art, expanding my weaving. I'm really enjoying that. And I hope that you'll come along for the ride with me. And I did mention several months ago that I was going to focus more on embroidery. But this week has really solidified that. I miss the messiness of embroidery. I miss the texture of embroidery. I miss the randomness that you can do with embroidery. I really miss that. So I'm going to try and have more of a balance in my stitching. And I think that is it from me, my friends. I don't think I have anything else to talk about. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. I know this is a really long one. I actually had to stop it in the middle. So I don't know quite how long it is, but I think it's really long. And I will see you hopefully next week. And I may have the weaving ASMR video for Tuesday if I have that edited by then. But otherwise, I'll see you next Friday. Please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.